Finding empowerment, embracing layers, yeah.
Hello, Melissa Crook here. Welcome back to the Field Podcast this week. It's time for some one-on-one empowerment time with me. And today we're going to talk about living out of our own expectations versus others' expectations of us. And so that can sometimes this can be misunderstood. There's expectations in life. We have expectations that we will show up on time, that we will get enough sleep at night, that we will feed ourselves, that we will drink enough water, all those kinds of things. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about those narratives that we live by, the way we design our life, the things that we say yes and no to, what we sign up for, the kind of job we have, the way we choose our relationships, where we're going to live. Those kinds of like societal, familial, cultural expectations. Sometimes they can be gender-based expectations that we need to unlearn and relearn narratives that are actually healthy and true for us. So I'm talking about asking yourself, what do I care about? What do I expect of myself? Am I being too hard on myself? Is that a healthy narrative? What do I want for my life? Who am I? How do I describe myself? What are the things that I value? Where do I want to show up in the world? What am I passionate about? Those are the things I'm talking about when I say living out of our own expectations versus others. When we live out of others people's expectations, we hand over our life to them. We hand over our choices to them. And so many of us get caught in this because, especially as women, we have been um, sometimes taught from early ages not to make a lot of noise, not to be a problem, be polite, be kind, take care of everyone else and put them first. Otherwise, you're being selfish. And there's a lot of this stuff that isn't healthy that we need to unlearn. And that starts with getting to know who we are and how we want to live and what lights us up every day and what feels in alignment with us. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about living out of our own expectations versus others. You heard me talk a lot when I was talking about our values conversation last week, that knowing what your values are really help you determine, oh, okay, in order to really live by my values, what I define as important, not what was told to me. And that can be a great place to operate from. Yes, our parents taught us, our spaces that we grew up in, our neighborhoods, our families, our schools, our friends, our faith spaces all taught us things. Then it's up to us from there to take those things and determine what's really ours and what really aligns with us. And sometimes there's a lot of pressure to keep doing the things that we were told. And a lot of times they're not actually what we're feeling called to, what we're feeling like we were made for. And so it can involve, some difficult conversations and decisions at times, but we owe it to ourselves. We were designed and created to live authentically to who we are, to show up in the world in a way that no one else does, because we were created uniquely and there's no one else exactly like us. And if we're not living true to ourselves, then the world is missing out on that. And so we get to do that. And I always say, especially lately, I've really defined this in the last year, that I want you to know that you're valuable and worthy and you get to choose. And I wrap up a lot of conversations with that. And I mean that. And part of that is living out of your expectations, what you know is healthy for you versus others. And when those things are in conflict, sometimes you got to set some healthy boundaries and make sure you're surrounding yourself with people and places and spaces that want you to live authentic to you, and in what it's like to communicate when those things are happening and you may need to make some shifts to honor yourself and no longer abandon yourself. So I thought that was worth clarifying because people sometimes don't always understand what I'm talking about when I say that. So what does this look like? What are some questions to consider? First question I want you to consider is, do you decide what your expectations are of yourself and your life? Or do you allow others around you to do that? Your parents, your friends, your workplaces, your faith spaces, your neighbors, your schoolmates, your coworkers, all those, your kids, your partner. Or are you asking yourself these things? Really, really important question to sit down with yourself in. Another question: have others informed this with or without your permission? So you have times where you're allowing that. You don't want to create problems. You don't want to upset the apple cart. And so you just allow people to inform without really speaking up for yourself. Other times, when you push back and say, no, I'm not going to do that anymore, they'll continue to try. And it's up to you to be consistent and say, no, I know that that's something that I used to do. I know that's something I used to participate in. I know that's something that I used to believe or thought was right. But I've learned as I've gotten to know myself better that that's not actually my expectation or hope for my life. That's yours. And I need to live in a way that's honoring to mine. So communicating that and sticking to that, because you'll get pushback sometimes, but staying true to that. And the people that really love you and are for you and honor you, they'll respect that. But they may push back a few times, either because they just forget because you're showing up in a new way, or they're testing to see if you're actually, staying true to that and really mean what you're saying with that. So don't take other people's reactions or responses when you communicate the expectations that you're living out of to be yours now and are shifting from what they're used to. Don't take that to mean you're doing something wrong. That's just them getting used to you speaking up in that way, living this way, honoring yourself in that way. So it doesn't mean you've done anything wrong. It doesn't mean that you're going to hear a lot, especially when people are uncomfortable with it. They may try to convince you of a lot of things, but listen to your inner knowing, trust yourself, trust what you've learned about yourself, and stay true to that. And then the last thing, I've talked about this already, when you make these shifts, you've got to communicate them. And so many times when we make shifts, we make plans, we learn things, we're so excited about it. And then we just expect others to respond to how we're feeling or how we've shifted, but we haven't communicated that to anyone. If an expectation is that you're going to show up for dinner every Sunday at 2 p.m. at said family member's house, and you've determined that in this season of life, that's just not something that is honoring to you anymore for a variety of reasons. It's too far to drive. It's, we have to get up early the next morning. I don't feel safe around them, whatever the case may be. It's upon you to communicate. I'm no longer going to be able to show up for this. This is a decision I've made that's honoring to me. And I ask you to respect that. I know that you might be disappointed, and I get that. And also, this is a decision I need to make for myself. You got to communicate that. You can't just, you can just stop showing up and not communicate it, but that is probably not the way you want to part from that. And sometimes we shy away from those conversations because they can be hard. But remember that you are worth it. You are worth honoring. And sometimes the most difficult things to do are also the healthiest and um, most honoring things to do for you. And to trust yourself in that. If you need resources, reach out. We've got resources here. I can work with you personally one-on-one to help you, practice these conversations and really get grounded in who you are so you can go at it with confidence, but make sure you're communicating. People are not mind readers, and us stomping around because they haven't responded the way we thought they would when we haven't communicated it isn't going to clarify anything either. They're just going to want to know why you're stomping around about something. So make sure you're clearly communicating. Communication is kind. All right, some ways to engage with this and really, really put this into play. I'm going to refer you once again, like I did with when we were talking about values. I'm going to refer you once again to identifying the activities that nourish you. Make sure you're doing things that nourish you, not that maybe nourish others or were suggested to you. And they sounded like a good idea, but they're not really hitting home. Not everybody loves to go for a morning run. That's not nourishing to everybody. Not everybody wants to listen to musicals on the way home. Just because your partner does doesn't mean it's nourishing for you. So being able to really identify those activities that nourish you. Name your character traits. Name who you are. This is who I am. This is how I describe myself. So within that, What are my expectations for myself within that? Does my calendar reflect that? Do your actions, just this is the next thing, do your actions or activities align with who you've named yourself to be, your character traits, or do they align with other people's expectations? What they expect you to do, how they expect you to respond, what they expect you to show up to. So are your activities, your actions, your calendar aligned with your actual expectations, or do they align with what others expect of you instead of what you want for yourself? And these are tricky questions. They can take time to really sit with, to really analyze, to be patient with yourself in this process, especially when you're making these shifts for the first time. And then again, back to that communication piece. Have you communicated your expectations, or are you expecting people to just know or read your mind? Remember, communication is kind. You are valuable, you are worthy, and you get to choose. You get to choose to live your life out of your own expectations, out of what feels in alignment and true and natural and authentic to you. Don't ever forget that. Don't lose sight of that. You are worthy, valuable. You get to choose that. Take good care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time here on the Feel Podcast.